So sometimes I get this question from some of my students: how do I know if I'm ready to go to a jazz jam session, if I'm ready to go play in public, if I'm ready even to start playing gigs? There's this sort of fear around, am I good enough? Am I prepared? What do I need to do when I'm finally up there? Or even I find that players that have played gigs or have done jam sessions are kind of a little insecure about themselves. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about how not to suck at jazz jam sessions and gigs. Let's kick it. All right, what's up? Brent here from Learn Jazz Standards, which is a blog, a podcast, and videos all geared towards helping you become a better jazz musician. Hey, if you've never subscribed to the channel, make sure you do that below so you get locked into everything that we have going on here. So, not sucking at jazz jam sessions and gigs. Actually, it's really easy. I'm not going to be talking about music theory tricks, improvisation tricks, any of that stuff. I talk about that in all of my other videos. I want to talk a lot today about mindset. So we're going to be covering all of this, and also in addition to help you understand whether you are ready to go play at a jazz jam session and prepared to take it by storm. So let's talk about 4 tips for being successful at jazz jam sessions and gigs. Tip number 1 is simple. Do your homework. Do your homework. What do I mean by that? A lot of times people feel anxious to go to jam sessions or gigs because they're really not sure what's required of them, especially if you're a beginner kind of looking in from the sideline. So this is what I want to suggest to you. If you're interested in going to your local jazz jam session, before you go up there and play, just show up there one night and just be a fly on the wall. Just sit back and listen and see what's going on. What's the repertoire that's being played? What are the level of players that are up there? What's actually happening? How are the musicians interacting with each other? It'll make you a lot more comfortable by just sitting back, observing the situation, and taking note. Which jazz standards are commonly being called, and do I know them? And do I already know a list of jazz standards myself? Then you can go back home, you can practice those jazz standards that you heard, and you can maybe hone in on some things that maybe you think you're missing. Now, this is not to say that you have to be a great jazz musician or a great musician in order to start playing at a jazz jam session. This just means that you need to look inside, look at yourself and say, can I actually do this jazz jam session? Can I actually play this gig? That's all you have to ask yourself. You just need to be able to do the basics, because the real learning happens on the bandstand anyways. So you need to get up there, just do your homework first, make sure you know the tunes, and then you're gonna be set up for success right from the bat. Tip number 2 is to leave your ego at the door. Now there's 2 different kinds of people that show up to jazz jam sessions and gigs. Number 1, there's the person who is very insecure with themselves, and they show up and they try to act like someone who they are not. They try to act like they're a big shot to fit in because they want to hide something. They're not acting like themselves. They're not allowing themselves to be the player that they are in the moment and to just enjoy the learning experience. So when you go to a jazz jam session or a gig, be yourself. You don't have to be the best musician there. You don't have to be better than everybody else, and you can be exactly where you're at as long as you've done the homework. And the second kind of person is the other side of the equation, the person that's making jazz horrible for everybody. This is the person who is vibing other people on the bandstand. Maybe they're a higher level player, but they just bring their ego into the gig. They bring their ego in the jam session. They just make everybody feel bad, and this is this weird passive aggressive, we call it vibing in the jazz arena, and it just sucks. And what you're doing is you're ruining everything for everybody, and you're pushing more people away from getting involved in jazz music than you're actually bringing them in. So if that's you, stop doing it. It's not helping anybody. Leave your ego at the door, and that's going to help everybody out in the long run. And number 3 is to record yourself and listen back. In the long run, we want to be constantly improving, and one great way to do that is to record yourself, listen back to your performance. Now there's 2 things we need to do when we do this. Number 1, you want to listen back and find all the great things that you did in your playing that will help you improve further. You want to look at those things that you were really excited about, really inspired musically. And the reason you want to do that is because, first of all, you're starting off with the positive instead of the negative. And second of all, those are the things that you want to continue doing in your playing, and they are unique to you, so you can further develop those. Now, the second thing you want to do is, of course, look for things that you think you could do better with. And so the more you do this process, the more you perform and listen back, this is where you let that bandstand teach you how to actually play. So go ahead and do that. This is going to really help you in the long run to be better at jazz jam sessions, more confident, better at your gigs. Now, number 4 is by far the most important tip I can give you about being great at jazz jam sessions and gigs. In fact, this has nothing to do with how talented you are, has nothing to do with how much you've practiced, nothing to do with how experienced you are. It's very simple. And that tip number 4, is serve the music first. Serve the music first. What do I mean by that? When you go into a jazz jam session or a gig, it should not ever be about you sounding good. It should never be about you. It should only be about you making everybody else sound good. And if everybody in the band has that exact same mindset, if they're saying, I want you to sound good, I want the bass player to sound good, I want the drummer to sound good, if everybody's thinking that way, the most magical things that you could ever imagine happen, and you reach these musical heights you didn't even think you were personally capable of or capable of as a group. And so here's an example of what not to do. This is an example of 7 years ago or so. I was at a jazz jam session in New York City, and there was a big band. There's on the stage, there's 5 horn players, there's a piano player, I'm the guitar player, there's a drum, there's just a whole ton of people playing. When it came for the piano solo to start, I decided to play chords. And in fact, I was playing a lot of chords. I was kind of lost in my own little world, trying to play cool things, thinking I was all hip and cool. And then suddenly I heard the piano yell at me, "Stop playing!" And I was super embarrassed. I could feel like the blood rushing to my face. I was just feeling awful. I was not serving the music in that moment. I was serving myself. I wasn't listening and going, hey, what's gonna make the music sound good right now? I was just trying to get my hip comping, my hip chords in there, and it wasn't serving anything. It was actually making a problem for the piano player. It was hindering him playing a great solo. So always serve the music first. That's my number 1 tip for not sucking at jazz jam sessions and gigs. So tell me what you think in the comments below. If you're a seasoned gigger or jam session goer, please leave as many as you can in the comments. And for those of you who are sitting on the sidelines, I also want to hear from you. What's holding you back from starting to go to jazz jam sessions and gigs? Because that's really where things are going to help you out. Let's hear those. Let's break through those limiting beliefs, those limitations, and grow together. And by the way, if you're one of those people that wants to improve your jazz skills, feel more confident in yourself and educate yourself, make sure you check out my free mini course called Accelerate Your Jazz Skills. You can find that at accelerateyourjazzskills.com. It's just a 3-part mini course where I rock through really important things that you need to do in order to boost your practicing, get the most out of it, and really improve your skills quickly. All right, that's all for me today. Hope you enjoyed that. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.